Hey everybody, welcome back to the Modern 5K trial here for NRG. I'm Tannen Grace. I'm joined by Drake Sasser. Joe needed to go take a nap. It's been a long day for him. He's a little tired. It's actually, I think it's supper time. I think that's the correct term, right? Supper for
I
him.
believe it is. I believe that's correct.
Yeah, he needs to go find a local Denny's, get a grand slam, one of those things, and
Denny's.
just get his nap in, man. He needs his beauty rest, Drake.
Absolutely. Do you since you're both, you're similar in age, right? Do you
Since we're
both
both old,
kind
you
of
can
take
say it.
turns
Since we're
with the
both old.
napping and the commentating?
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, exactly. So like I told him yesterday, it's like, look, man, when you need your nap, let me know. I'll be fresh. I'll be ready to go. I slept in a little bit this morning. I slept till like 5 a.m., a little sleep in special.
I love
So
it
we'll
for you.
see.
Well, that's fantastic. Either way, I'm very happy to see you again. Of course, very close with you, Tannen. I do miss you dearly,
Aw.
and I'm happy to be back in the booth
Mhm.
with you, watching some awesome modern action here at the final event of the NRG season.
Yeah, and speaking of awesome modern stuff, we've got a pretty cool deck or two, depending on how you want to look at it. We do have four-color mid-range in that's going to be in one of our matches by Adam Saba, a player that I know quite well. He put up a really good result yesterday, I believe was in the top 8, if I remember right, or was one of the feature matches yesterday. I'm trying to remember. They all blend into one. It's hard. But
Very
he's
well.
been on coverage before this weekend. Very good player. From his area, one that he probably doesn't get to play as much as he wants to, right? Family man, has a lot of obligations outside of Magic, but love to see him putting up results when he gets to play. And then his opponent is Cat Miller, who's playing 5-color Zoo. And this is a deck we don't get to see all the time, but this is a card that I've even heard you mention today that you like, see things like Scion of Draco, Territorial Kavu,
Oh yeah,
General
big fan.
Ferrous is in this as well, going to make some 3/1s. So this is a deck where they get to the board quick and they're very powerful. So we're going to have to see if it can rumble with this 4-color deck that's usually pretty good at playing for the board.
Absolutely. So yeah, like you said, I'm a real big fan. Anytime Tribal Flames is involved in a mix,
Yeah.
it's hard for me not to be a fan. There's just so many cool domain cards. Domain, something that Joe has done an excellent job calling out,
Mhm.
even earlier on when we were watching the Battle of Wits deck from Robert Taylor.
Right.
No domain cards there, but obviously something we're conscious of. I think that really speaks to the impression that these kinds of domain cards have access to. And Scion of Draco has been a card on a lot of people's radar as soon as it was spoiled for Modern Horizons 2. And this deck being able to leverage things like Gigantha as a companion, as well as some main deck copies of the Streets of New Capenna card, Unlicensed Hearse. Of course, we did finish the Triomes as well, but there seems like Capenna may have had a pretty big impact on this 5-color Zoo deck.
Unlicensed Hearse having impact in all the formats, it seems, this weekend. We
Absolutely.
saw it in every format, looking at the top 8, even in the finals, we saw it decide a game for the Rug Delver deck. This is a card I did not have on my list as like making it into Legacy. But like you said, definitely affecting this deck. For everybody at home, if you're a little newer to the game and you don't know what domain is, it's actually a keyword now that used to not be a keyword in Magic, but it's what we reference when you had all 5 colors. And generally, domain references when you actually have one of all the 5 types of land. And that's what domain's going to check. And Tribal Flames is a sorcery that deals X damage equal to the number of basic land types that you have. You don't have to have basics, just those types of lands. So you're looking at Tribal Flames being a 2-mana sorcery that deals 4 or 5 damage every time. This is how old school this is. My very first ever extended event, I played Tribal Flames in it. Extended,
Wow.
Drake. That
Never played extended myself.
Oh, it was a treat. Extended the precursor to modern for everybody else around here. And speaking of modern,
It's kind of like a standard modern hybrid we'll go with.
It looks like we got I would say we might have gotten one of the names wrong here. So that might be on me this round.
Yeah, it looks like Aaron, actually, the pilot here, the 5-color Zoo deck. Cat is playing the 4-color Elementals deck, fetching up. It looks like one of those Streets of New Capenna Triomes. Can't really get a great look. I assume it's probably the Bant one.
That might be the Naya one, actually.
Wow.
That one has red in it. With the 4 different arts of all the new ones, it's going to take a minute for me to get used to them.
It takes a second, exactly. They're new cards. I'm sure Twitch chat can give us some forgiveness. And heck, they might also just correct me. And I appreciate
they're
Twitch
always
chat when
right.
they do that.
Yeah,
both players fetching different triomes. Like to see that.
I'm not as bad as Joe. I can keep up on most of the alternate art and new stuff, but if we ever have a tournament where only revised white border cards are legal, we just have to get Joe in the booth. He'll know every card right away.
Yeah, okay. He can't stand these newfangled arts. He yells at the clouds all the time. Here is Steam Vents going to allow Territorial Kavu to come into play. I believe that is a copy of the Abzan Triome. So maybe we have all 5 types here. This might be a full-powered Kavu.
I think this is I think this is all 5 types here. If we could pull Territorial Kavu up for everybody at home, this is no joke when you have all 5 for everybody at home. So it's going to have power types equal to the number of basic land types on Lands Girl. So this is a 2-mana 5/5. So this is actually better than Termagoyf would be on turn 2 here in a lot of spots. And then you see whenever you attack, you can choose one. You can discard a card. If you do draw a card, Rummage for a lot of people at home, or you can exile 1 card from a graveyard. So some main deck graveyard hate as well as a little bit of card quality and quantity.
Absolutely. And Kavu going to represent a very powerful clock here. Teferi here on turn 3 for Cat's going to allow them to be able to return that Kavu to hand, maybe delay a little bit of the beatdown action from that card, as well as, obviously keep the board clear to allow Cat to continue to develop their mana and position themselves to be able to start raining down the powerful elemental cards the deck is named after. Here is the Territorial Kavu replayed with the Misty Rainforest up, looking to fetch any types that are missing. We do believe they have all 5 types, or Aaron, has all 5 types for Domain, but if any are missing, Misty Rainforest can grab them, as here's Abundant Growth on Boseiju, who endures.
Now, we saw this Teferi come in and bounce the Territorial Kavu. Is this something that's going to be the main thing that Cat Miller is going to be doing with their turns? Is just kind of make sure they don't die early so they can get to the late game?
Well, if you take a look at the elementals, like the construction of the elementals deck, many of the elementals are not very large when it comes to power and toughness. So Cat not really able to blade in combat with many of the threats that Aaron is going to present. The best way to handle them is to delay them with things like Teferi, or, obviously permanently answer them with cards still effective like Solitude and Furies. Those are the kinds of cards that Cat needs to be casting, but Solitudes and Furies, you don't really want to pitch cast those unless you absolutely have to. So Teferi is going to do a lot in order to stymie some of the aggression from Aaron until they get an opportunity to get 5 lands into play and start casting these for the full card advantage, and then eventually win the game down the line once all of Aaron's threats are answered on the back of having, a bunch of extra cards over Aaron.
It looks like we're going to be going back over to Aaron here. Go ahead and sacrifice that Misty Rainforest, pick up a Stomping Ground. I think like we said, all 5 lands accounted for. So this is a 5/5 Territorial Kavu. I see at least 1 Tribal Flames in Aaron's hand as well.
A little bit of Streets of New Capenna cards. Looks like I said, License Hirsch among the mix. Maybe that's a Lightning Helix going to go ahead and try to take care of that Teferi. And looks like plenty of cards in Cat's hand. We will see how they respond. Looks like a Solitude is going to be pitch cast with an Omnath targeting the Kavu.
This is a high cost to pay to kill this Kavu here, but being at 17, the life total needs to stay high. Now, the Solitude is going to go to the graveyard, remove that, but that's also an Omnath gone as well. So hopefully for Cat, they have some backup here in the hand, a couple more big important spells. But you can see they're really, really valuing that life total here in this matchup.
Well, yeah, and with Aaron willing to commit a burn spell on the Teferi Planeswalker, maybe that gives Cat a little bit more to work with when it comes to life. So she's willing to say, or I'm sorry, they are willing to say that as long as, my life total stays high, I can, I have plenty of time to take hits from the next threat that comes. So I can afford, if I have an extra copy of Omnath, I can just pitch cast the Solitude here, and this Omnath's going to run away with the game because I'm not facing down a lot of aggression. Here's a Scion of Draco as a follow-up. Really spicy card, has a lot of text on it. We got a reader. Let's see if we get that one up for the chat as well.
Yeah, this one's going to be a flying. Yeah, this one's going to be a flying 4/4 for everybody at home. It just costs a lot less for all of this because this is a 12 drop, but it's going to actually cost 10 less because we have all 5 types of lands. So it's actually a 2-mana 4/4 flyer that says each creature you control vigilance is white, hexproof is blue. Has vigilance if it's white, hexproof if it's blue, lifelink if it's black, first strike if it's red, and trample if it's green. Not relevant yet, but any of those other creatures when they come out, they're going to get a little extra bonus. And speaking of one of those elementals you're talking about, here's another high cost pay, but this is a Fury that's going to go ahead and take care of the Scion and trigger that Risen Reef.
Yeah, so Risen Reef, this is what we were talking about. This is the way the Elementals deck wants to be set up. You want to have that Risen Reef in play. Go ahead and get a little card advantage off that. Then you can evoke all of your Elementals at no card cost, right? Because you are getting a card from the Risen Reef trigger that will replace whatever card you use to pitch cast. So they start to work on a 1-for-1 basis. The Risen Reef itself is card advantage in its own right, and this is how the Elementals deck pulls ahead with card advantage despite pitch casting all of their cards. It looks like Cat's going to leave this fetch land back. I think I spy another copy of Omnath in their hand. That's going to play a big role on the next turn, provided, of course, Aaron doesn't have some really big turn here. But with Cat sitting at a healthy 17, hard to imagine we're going to string together anything resembling a kill, but never underestimate Tribal Flames.
Yeah, and so like this seems to be a good spot for Cat, right? Like you said, there are a bunch of burn spells in this deck. We've seen Lightning Helix, we've seen Tribal Flames has been cast yet, but we know it's in the hand. And these are good at finishing players off, right? Or clearing the way for your creatures. But Cat, they've done a very good job of keeping the creatures off the board and their life total high. So now when this Omnath gets in play and starts gaining 4 life every turn, this is going to be a serious problem. But this is a decent setup. We have the general in play. All of our multicolored spells for Aaron are going to make 3/1s from here on out. And that's going to be really, really important in trying to push through some damage here, because Aaron needs to find a consistent source of damage if they want to win this game, because I think that Tribal Flames is going to get pointed directly at this Omnath the first opportunity.
It's hard not to agree with you there. It looks like Cavernous Souls picked up, so we are going to have the first land drop to be able to play. That fetch land represents the second, which will trigger the mana ability of Omnath. Now, Cat doesn't have a lot of Omnaths left. You can see 2 of them pitch for Solitude and Fury, respectively. Going to go ahead and quickly fetch. Go ahead and make that mana. I'm sure that Cavern naming Elemental. But, once this Omnath gets answered with something like Tribal Flames, there's not a lot left. And Omnath is one of the big ways you see the Elementals and 4-color decks get ahead on mana. They have plenty of ways to accumulate card advantage. There's no shortage of that. Where they often get constricted is their spells are very expensive. And Omnath making a bunch of mana plays a big role in being able to dispense all of those cards, keep the card flow running, and begin to bury your opponent. So we'll see how relevant that is. It's also one of the sizier attackers, too, when it comes to actually finishing games. So we'll see how relevant trying to keep an Omnath in play is for Cat.
Yeah, really important to note that the extra mana from Omnath plays a really big role when you get later in the game, because like you mentioned, these spells are expensive, and getting 2 spells in a turn out of the elemental deck, very difficult a lot of the time until you get upwards of like 6, 7, 8 mana. Omnath does a really good job of allowing you to double spell in a turn, something that Aaron's deck is going to be very good at in this matchup.
Correct.
And that's generally how it pulls ahead of you, is it plays a really efficient big threat, and then it plays 2 spells one of the turns, like kills your blocker, adds another threat, for 3 or 4 mana. And if the elemental deck is doing that on par, then they're in a good spot in this deck, because some of their stuff's a little more impactful as the game goes on. So it does look like there's going to be a prismatic ending here.
It has to be on License Hearse. I believe General Ferrous Rokiric has hexproof from monocolored.
It's hexproof for protection for monocolor. Let me double check on that. I'll check that myself real quick, but you are correct. It does have an ability like that.
Yeah, going to go ahead and target that and License Hearse. 2 cards exiled from the graveyard. Looks like Solitude and Fury. Does do a good job of checking any, whatever returns that could happen with something like Eternal Witness. So it does matter what cards you pick to exile within License Hearse. Aaron is very intelligently remembering to activate that card prior to exile, as here's the Eldamri's Call follow-up. You see the General Ferrous Rokiric there. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's close enough. You understand what I'm saying either way. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, make a 4/4 white and red Golem artifact creature token. A little bit payoff for playing a bunch of different multicolored cards, and is going to do a good job actually of kind of accumulating some card advantage where there isn't a lot available to a Zoo deck, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It does dodge a lot of this removal as well. So it's like kind of like card advantage, the fact that it's going to stay around. And then when you make these 4/4s, not only is it kind of free attached to the spells, but like you said, one of the bigger creatures out of the elemental deck is Omnath, and it rumbles well with it. Is this Titania? Yeah, I think this is
I think that's a Titania. We saw Adam Washburn Moses use one to incredible effect against an Amulet Titan deck earlier today in the hands of Korra, and it looks like it might be doing a really good job of stifling some blockers here as Bloodbraid Elf, the follow-up, gonna make a 4/4. Looks like we indicated that as we begin to cascade. Imagine there's a token coming. How about a follow-up in License Hearse?
Absolutely. This is a lot of power getting out of this board for just 4 mana here. We're going to add an Unlicensed Hearse, a 3/2 Haster, and a 4/4 from the General. So this is widely needed from the Zoo player, because that Titania is going to represent so much stuff over the next couple turns. It's going to make a lot of 5/3s, which are going to rumble really well against all the cards in Pearson's deck. It's going to be able to block and trade for practically everything he does, all those 4/4 tokens. But also, don't forget, there's going to be 4 life gained for some of these lands getting put into play, extra mana, so maybe multiple spells getting cast. So as long as one of the players doesn't flood out from here, mostly Aaron, settle in. I think this game's about to get really complicated and chunky in the red zone here. Oh, this is one of my favorite combos, is Titania with Risen Reef. because the
Oh,
5/3s are also elementals.
Oh,
So this
yeah.
is an endless string of elementals. Because here's the thing: if you told Kat that they were only going to draw lands practically for the rest of the game, but the Titania and the Risen Reef would stay alive, they'd sign up for that.
I
And
think they would pretty handily win this
Yeah.
game if it was just a
Yes.
fetch land every turn for the rest of the game, because that's more 5/3s. That's another string of lands, and that's going to be pretty hard to beat, even with a General Ferrous Rokiric to make 4/4s. Those don't line up well against the 5/5s that are, I think, a little bit easier to get for Cat than casting multicolored spells for Aaron is. And we're going to see a fetch land happen right away. Now, do you remember this token will enter, I believe, prior to the fetch? And Risen Reef triggers need to happen before the fetch, which I believe we are now realizing.
Yeah, I was going to say. So let's see. I think the judges might clean this up. Maybe the trigger get announced and we're just doing it out of order. Sometimes you're allowed to do your own triggers out of order as long as you don't get a huge advantage or disadvantage from them. So we'll see this. It looks like Cat's going to put a forest into play here, and let's see if this Risen Reef trigger does actually happen. But that is I believe a 5/3 added here from Titania.
It's a 5/3. 5/3 green elemental token. It looks like we're gonna have an Omnath trigger. That's gonna gain 4 life.
So it looks like maybe that trigger was missed since the deck was picked up and searched through.
Potentially. I think it's not going to matter too much, especially if this Yorion is added to the mix. We do see Abundant Growth potentially available prior to casting, and we are going to see that. There you go. Go ahead and use the green mana from the Omnath trigger. I'm going to go ahead and cast Abundant Growth and draw a Flooded Strand. Now, Yorion does threaten to exile and return Titania, which can return a land, Risen Leaf, which has a trigger, and Omnath, which also has a trigger. And then the other 2 elementals also trigger from the Omnath itself. So we're going to go ahead and take care of another unlicensed Hearse with the prismatic ending, setting up for a really powerful Yorion. And it looks like, Aaron, typically seen as kind of an aggressive deck. Many of the wins this 5-color deck can present are very overwhelming. A lot of big creatures that are hard to block. So it doesn't really matter how many turns you get. You would still just get beat down with these large monsters. Well, Cat able to kind of mount a pretty impressive defense here.
Yeah, the Eldamari's Call, I think, is going to end up being the biggest thing in this game, right? Being able to find the Titania with Omnath in play is just going to prove, I think, too much for Aaron to deal with. And we're going to have to see, maybe Aaron can get out of this because they're about to add a ton more stuff to the board here. But this Lightning Helix, I guess this is going to have to go after, I guess the Titania here. It is a 5/3.
Get rid of that one.
That's step number 1 for Aaron getting back in this game. That's really, really good for him. Now he's actually making inroads on the board quite a bit, and
there should be 2 4/4s if all triggers are remembered also, because Lightning Helix, there we go. We're going to go ahead and point to that. Here's 2 more 4/4s. Beautiful Arcade Post tokens added to the board state here, just to gunk things up even more. And here's a Tribal Flames. Let's go ahead and take care of that Omnath while we're here.
It's a huge turn from Aaron.
Absolutely.
So the turn that he needed to get back into this game, he was super far behind, and now he's actually ahead and winning. And Cat has been up to this the entire time. Cat has been up to this the entire game of being able to answer this and come back. But there's 3 Omnaths gone already. I don't know if she's going to be able to do this. If they're going to be able to do this, we're going to have to see what's left over in their hand.
Yeah, it's funny. If you had asked me who was more likely to win given their token generator, I literally mentioned earlier Cat with Titania versus Aaron with General Ferrous, I would have probably easily said Titania, especially with Risen Reef triggers and stuff like that. But suddenly, these 4/4 tokens against a lonely Risen Reef are looking to be incredibly overwhelming.
Now, Cat does have one good thing going for them. They have the Yorion in hand. If they have anything else along with the Yorion this turn, it's going to come down. It's going to draw a bunch of cards. You've got 2 Abundant Growths plus the Risen Reef in play.
Absolutely.
And a bunch of other things. The 4/5 is going to be able to check some of these 4/4s as well. And so they're going to be able to recoup a lot of what they lost over the last turn this turn. It just matters how much damage they take this turn as well. If there's another removal spell in Aaron's hand behind us to take the Yorion out and allow them to start putting damage through, then that's the beginning of them finishing this game. So we'll have to see. This is where the game's going to be decided, is Absolutely. What happens in this turn next. It doesn't look like Cat has anything else. So it's going to be on Aaron.
It looks like a land was drawn. The Misty Rainforest, the draw for turn. Could put the Abundant Growth there if we so choose. Instead, choosing to upgrade the Boseiju and the Snow-Covered Forest. That will trigger the Risen Reef. Going to go ahead and draw a Fury. That's a good one, as here comes 2 more cards. Looks like Prismatic Ending and Breeding Pool. The 2 cards drawn. Yorion, a little bit better of a blocker than the Lonely Risen Reef, but quite an onslaught of 4/4s already in play. 2 cards available for Aaron, as well as a Gigantha that can be bought. Look, we're going to go ahead and get that accomplished. And here's a Territorial Kavu, a good draw as it makes another 4/4 and is a 5/5 itself. Just huge monsters coming down for this 5-color Zoo deck.
Absolutely. And we're going to have to see if Aaron can present enough pressure this turn and next to get the game over with, because you are a little worried, right, when this many cards go into the 4-color Elemental's hand. I will say this, his board is actually pretty resilient to Fury. Yeah, it's going to be able to pick off 2 creatures here. It's going to be able to pick off Shardless Agent plus the Bloodbraid Elf, but these are the creatures that aren't exactly the super impactful ones here. You're looking at the 4/4s and the 5/5s as more impactful, so I wonder if you're supposed to kill 2 creatures here or one of the 4/4s.
Yeah,
Since Fury kind of brick walls both the smaller creatures, maybe you're supposed to actually just... Look, I guess we could resolve the trigger first. Oh, there we go. So it looks like we're going to clean up the board. There's something to be said about that too. None of these creatures have trample, right? So just keeping the board clean is another thing that Cat is interested in, it looks like here.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Cat already has the biggest thing on the board, right, with the Yorion. I guess it's not true with the Kavu recently added, but Yorion, you know, one of the best things at answering these 4/4s, picking off one of those 4/4s, not good enough. You could answer the Kavu, you would. Instead, I think stopping things from going wide, and we do see that prismatic ending drawn off of the Abundant Growth last turn from the Yorion trigger. Going to go ahead and take care of the Kavu. Yorion, once again, the biggest thing on the table, and this is where I think Cat wants to navigate the board state too. You want to be able to make sure Yorion's the biggest thing on the table, and I'm not going to die from going wide, because that's what General Ferrous is doing here, right? Going wide with these 4/4s. As we see an attack coming in, Yorion very easily going to block one of those, and you can afford to take the 2 more hits and keep your Risen Reef around to allow, you know, another snowball of elementals to start firing up again as soon as you draw some elementals. And an important part of the process is here comes Wrenn and Six.
And this is a really good draw here. This allows Wrenn and Six to, it's going to make a 4/4. And if Aaron wants, he can actually downtick on the Yorion here, removing the 4/5. So it's not going to be able to block in the future of this game. That's a big play here.
Absolutely. And it does add another 4/4, as you mentioned, to the table. So replaces the 4/4 that was lost and takes care of the Yorion, to where Yorion no longer the biggest, baddest thing on the table. Fury only trades with 4/4 tokens. Suddenly Cat in a position where they need a really good draw. We see Wrenn and Six. Something like some of the channel lands could make this Wrenn and Six a really good draw. Otherwise, Cat already has access to more than enough mana.
Let's see. Are there any channel lands? Are there any of the Triomes in Cat's graveyard? Something to do here is big, because Wrenn and Six by itself, just buying back lands right now, not that great, right? We see so many. Well, actually, hold on a second. It says protection from multicolored or monocolored on
monocolored. It has hexproof from monocolored, so it could kill the General.
You could pick off the General here, and that's actually pretty good. So I was gonna say this is a little bit better of a top deck than I thought it was at first.
True. Still 3 4/4s left behind with no clear answer to them. Once again, Fury can trade with one of them, but I mean, 8 power is still a lot. So like, it does do a little bit. It does stop, the flood of these 4/4 tokens, but I don't think it's going to do enough on its own. Now we'll see if Aaron respects the Wrenn and Six enough to attack it after it takes care of the General, assuming that is the best thing to do with it. Don't really have access to the entire contents of Cat's graveyard, but as you mentioned, I'm pretty sure killing the General is the most appealing thing to do with this card. We'll see exactly what Cat decides to do here.
There's another scary thing here too, is if there is an attack from Aaron with all of them, you're almost incentivized to block with Riven Reef and trade with Fury, because if you take 8 here, you go to 2, and there's a Wrenn and Six on the other side of the board with 2 counters on it that can actually steadily kill you.
It will actually just kill you, yeah.
But the thing is, if you tick down your Wrenn and Six down to 1 to deal 1 damage to Cat, Cat can then kick down their Wrenn and Six to kill yours, and then they only have to find answers to your tokens at that point. But we're at a tightrope spot here, and I was about to say, I don't know what's left over in Cat's hand. I don't know if they have any spells left. So we're going to have to see. I think the first person to get another impactful spell this game will really pull ahead, but Aaron's actually slightly ahead here on the board, just a bit.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. Of course, you can argue who has better draws more often. Aaron certainly, I think, has a flatter power level with just a bunch of monsters and burn spells in his deck. Cat has a bunch of 2-for-1s, which are huge hits, but of course, a lot of lands, a bunch of things that could just like cantrip into lands, things like Abundant Growth, plenty of misses, but the hits for Cat, I think, are a lot bigger than the hits for Aaron. A hit for Aaron's just, another monster. And so even if with another hit, I think you need Cat to miss still to really clearly seal up the game. But as you said, any draw from either player, it looks like Scion of Draco may be the pickup. Looks like an artifact. Can't really get a great look.
All right, looks like the Wrenn and Six is going to go ahead and pick off the Risen Reef here to remove a blocker.
Oh, Territorial Kavu, a good one. Not going to make a 4/4 this time, but a 5/5 in its own right. As here comes 12 damage in tokens alone.
And they're definitely going to attack Cat here. Love attacking Cat. I don't think you need to pay any respect to Wrenn and Six at this point. And
you can see
rubbing
Cat
their hands.
knocking the top of the deck. Help, please, says Cat. I need a little bit of assistance.
I was going to say, I didn't see what it was. I thought it might be a spell, but it needs to be a really good one.
I think maybe Teferi?
Teferi gives you it's not bad and gives you a redraw here. It will kill one of the tokens while also giving you a redraw, but you need a lot to go right here.
A Teferi into a Solitude. Oh, it's a Risen Reef. Okay,
Risen Reef,
another redraw. Solitude.
Almost any of the elemental incarnations can get it done here. Well, actually, no, because the Wrenn and Six is going to check this Risen Reef, so it's going to be a little bit too much.
It looks like it was a Cat to come through. So that's not going to be good enough. Aaron going to steal game one here.
Yep. So Arid up one game with this kind of innovative 5-color zoo deck is kind of what we called it from back in the day. More of a domain deck now. This is something we haven't really seen put up too many results in modern lately. We'll have to see. If it's going to make its way to the top 8 with a 5-0 start and a game going for the 6-0 start, really good chance that it is going to put up one of these really good finishes. And it's nice to see Scion of Draco in a deck that's actually trying to attack with it and use it the way it was intended, and not in the calibrated blast deck that we've seen a little bit in Modern over the last few weeks. So Scion of Draco getting a little bit of play here. So some of the forgotten cards from MH2 Drake are actually making a big impact in this match.
Yeah, you love to see it. We actually have the deck list. Let's go ahead and bring that up on screen. Take a look at the specifics here. We did see Shardless Agent as a cascade spell. We also saw Bloodbraid Elf. These cards also a really neat, unique innovation alongside the General Ferrous Rokiric. We saw that used to great effect to give Aaron a win there in game one. When these cards were spoiled, you mentioned, right? Territorial Kavu. We see Scourge of the Skyclaves. We see Scion of Draco. When these cards were spoiled, a lot of people tried to make this Domain Zoo deck happen. Clearly, this is something that is trying to get some support from Modern Horizons 2, but players couldn't quite figure it out. This Cascade build alongside General Ferrous Rokiric might be enough to get it done. It certainly looked impressive there in game one. What kind of sideboard options are you liking against the Elementals deck based on what we have here?
So I'm looking at it, and I was looking before you even said that, and I'm like, I think I might just present my 60 again.
Yeah, I not like a lot. Maybe the Teferis are good enough at shutting down instant speed tricks, but outside of that, there's not a lot to like.
Maybe there's something to be said about being on the draw with Scourge of the Skyclaves. You might not take enough damage that you can readily just cast one of your Cascaders on 3, and if you hit it, it might just die. So maybe there's something to be said about that, but I mean, I don't even know. That makes you have to play weird with your own lands. You have to shock yourself more often. I'm not sure.
Scourge does check the opponent as well. So if you're beating down the opponent, it is whoever is higher, I believe.
It's the highest life total among players. You're right.
Right. So you fetch shock, like you said, you need your life total down, and then you beat down your opponent. So yeah, like you said, a Cascade on 3, probably not the hit you're looking for, but plenty of other good hits as we see. Only 2 copies of Wrenn and Six, kind of strange. Not a lot of bad cards in this matchup. Maybe you can shave on the Unlicensed Hearses or the Bolts if you think those cards are a little worse than Teferis. But otherwise, like you said, probably presenting a lot of the same 60 that we have here. Giganta, of course, the companion, does explain a lot of the exclusions as far as other potential cards that would have double pips in their mana cost. But either way, as you mentioned, a very innovative take using multicolored cards that just almost, it feels like a vomit of creatures on the table. You just have multicolored stuff everywhere, tokens and generals, and here's a Cascade card. Why not? Just like vanilla bodies everywhere.
So Drake, we had a camera on the players, and I was going to try to watch to see if any sideboarding happened on the side of the Zoo player, and I missed it while we were talking about this when I was looking at the sideboards, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say same 60. I think that's what I would do.
Run it back. No changes.
I mean, we won game 1. What more do you want?
Yeah, deck's perfect. It already won a game. You just won another one.
It's won a lot of games apparently today as well. So.
Absolutely. Both players, we see a little bit of an asymmetrical companion setup here. Yorion versus Giganta. Both cards in foil. Have a lot of appreciation for that. Full art Giganta versus not full art Yorion. I think that's why game 1 was won by Aaron, but can't say for sure. Who's to say?
Foil dominancy? Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
It does increase your draw percentage by about 2 to 3%. You can check my math on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Okay, yeah, I think you're objectively correct as well. The blinding of the foils has enough of a percentage. It's objectively competitively correct to play foils. You heard it here first. I will take no further questions regarding foils. Thank you for your time, Twitch chat.
I got nothing.
Yeah, you got nothing. That's fair enough. It looks like a mulligan here on Cat's side. Aaron likes their opening 7.
Your logic is undeniable, Drake. So
there's just no lies detected.
Right. And how do you feel about mulliganing with the elementals deck? I've got to feel that mulligans pretty decently, even though you're a larger deck, because, is it a decent mulligan deck with all the cards practically replacing themselves?
Yeah, that's right. That's like exactly kind of the way I would think about it, is like you need a functional hand. You do have a lot of 1 for 2s in the form of your pitch cards where you're going down on card advantage, but the deck is designed to be able to play with their card advantage. They can go down cards, but then they recoup them with things like Risen Reef, with things like Expressive Iteration, all those kinds of cards with these four color piles. That's kind of the big cost of playing 4 colors. Is like, your mana base hurts a little bit more, so maybe your burn matchup's a little bit worse, but all your cards are just great. There's 2-for-1s or they're efficient free spells. And so mulliganing is probably just fine, as when you win, it's by a complete landslide of card advantage, not by little, incremental stuff most of the time.
Yeah, as I was saying, it's not like in the back in the day where if a card said draw a card on it, we were happy to play. I'm looking at you, Electrolyze, that's been functionally banned from Modern. Man, I miss the days when that was played.
Electrolyze.
Yeah. I mean, Remand is kind of making a comeback. Maybe one day we'll get Electrolyze back. We'll see. But
I've heard calls for Remand and Pioneer. What do you think of that? You like a little Remand action in Pioneer?
I'm not sure about that one in Pioneer, but we'll see. I'm not sure I want to give the combo decks Remand in that format, but
that's fair. The combo deck's already very dominant. No play on turn 2 from Cat. Kind of interesting to see. Could be no Wrenn is usually not that surprising. We did have a turn 1 abundant growth to fix the mana, so we could cast basically whatever we want there. Chose just to go ahead and pass the turn back to Aaron, who fetched a Triome on the instep, now has a Fetch Shock Stomping Ground, and here is a Territorial Kavu. Hard to imagine. I believe that's the Mardu Triome, right?
I think this is a 4/4, right? Because this is the Mardu. This is the Mardu one. So this is non-blue in right now. You're seeing Domain really get a kick in the last about year and a half. The Triomes having all 3 land types. The fact that you can have Domain on turn 2 now is something that was never actually available to you in the back. I remember playing decks like this back in the day, like I said, playing tribal flames, and when the shock lands got printed into the original Ravnica, this was a big deal because you could fetch for a shock, fetch for another 2 lands, and you had 4 of your 5, and that was such a big deal. And speaking of a big deal, this might be game ending.
Instep Eldamri's call. That's why there's no play on turn 2. Check it out. Here's a Magus of the Moon.
Outs for the Zoo player, 4 lightning bolts.
4 lightning. Tribal Flame's not going to get it done. Only does 1 damage. You need 2 copies of those. As here is a Magus of the Moon, uncounterable from Cavernous Souls. Get a look there. How about Blood Moon on creature? 2/2. Can tutor it up with your Eldamri's calls. Planes! Tribal Flames kills it! Oh no!
I think there's 2 basics in this entire deck, Drake. Yeah, there's 1
and it's Lightning Helix!
Oh my god, it's Lightning Helix, Drake.
Just take care of it. Don't need that in play. Absolutely not. Get out of my way. Would you like to take your 4 damage now or later?
So yeah, this does look like it's only 4. There's no island, and we're going to go ahead and take one of the lands out of the graveyard. Something that could actually matter later in the game. This game goes long, and a Wrenn and Six comes later. That's some fuel for Cat's deck. That's not going to be there, but what a huge haymaker from Cat, and then a very good answer from Aaron. One of the 2 basics in his deck just happened to be in his hand.
Never didn't have it, Tan. And you have to wonder if, how versed Aaron is in this matchup. Based on the confidence of playing that, it looked like Aaron just had it covered. Looks like, they were just expecting Magus of the Moon to happen in the post-Cyborg games, and they just had it dialed up. Here's my planes, this is my Lightning Helix. We're playing Magic. I didn't sign up to get locked out by Blood Moon. No, thank you.
Yeah, we didn't want to watch a game like that anyway, right? We didn't want to see a game into a Magus of the Moon on turn 3. So we're going to get an actual slugfest again between these 2 players. And it looks like Aaron's setting up for a big turn, possibly something like a Bloodbraid Elf or something this turn. Let's see. It looks like he might be...
Bloodbraid Elf, not great under Teferi. Going to shock on the Steam Vents. That gives you the 5th type. Territorial Kavu may be back on the radar. Could do 2 2-mana spells this turn. We'll see exactly what Aaron wants to do. Looks like Territorial Kavu is going to kick us off here. Maybe a Scion of Draco, the follow-up. It sure is. No haste
Really?
here, but I believe that Territorial Kavu now has 2 different abilities granted from the Scion of Draco, which I believe is, let's see,
It's going to have
First Strike
First Strike and
and
Trample, I
Trample.
believe. Yep.
Good
This is
ones
a
to have for
5/5
sure.
first striking 5/5 first striking trampling creature for 2 mana. Sign me up. I'm in for that. This is a little bit better than Termagoyf had it in a lot of spots. You know, a card that
Absolutely.
used to dominate these formats, and I mean, I haven't seen one in play in what feels like years, Drake.
Not even registered in the Zoo deck anymore. Used to be a staple of the archetype, as here is Risen Reef. Going to go ahead and draw another copy of Eladamri's Call. Don't think we have another copy of Magus of the Moon to grab if I had to gamble on it. But either way, don't even have the mana for that quite yet, as Cat is only looking at 1 land. Looks like an island in hand. Doesn't really help cast a lot at the moment.
See a Sacred Foundry as well, I believe. Yep, looks like
Oh, you're right. There it is. All right, that helps.
That one was hiding in the back.
You know, my eyesight's it's going with my old age, you see.
I thought Joe took the round off.
All right, that's fair. Touche. Well, let's see.
Maybe that's why he doesn't actually know the alternate arts. Not that he doesn't know them; he just can't see.
He can't see them. Oh, that might be the case. I'll have to ask him when I see him again.
Get him a prescription. You know. Sorry, Joe. I hope you're not watching.
We're just like savaging the man while he's gone.
He can't defend himself. You know.
It's cruel. Yeah. And Lightning Helix, another good pickup from Aaron. You know, I was kind of suggesting maybe trimming on some of those effects in the sideboard games. They've looked very important for handling Magus this night. Admit, I feel a little foolish, as here's another copy of Lightning Helix. This one targeting Teferi Time Raveler. Not as quite as good of a target as Magus the Moon, but gonna get the job done nonetheless.
There's also a Wrenn and Six behind this in Aaron's hand to pick off the Risen Reef and be able to just rumble in for most of Cat's life total here. So this is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Cat does have an Eldamar's Call that they're going to be able to use, but that's going to be practically it for the next 2 turns. So this game might end very soon. We have to see. So this Wrenn and Six is going to pick off the blocker here. I have to believe. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. If Wrenn just picks off the Risen Reef, right? And then we get a crash in for 9, assuming the life totals here are accurate, which I believe they are, Cat would go to 3. That Lightning Helix would be lethal. So interesting that we led on Lightning Helix to pick off the Teferi Time Raveler, where there's a potential to just, you know, maybe end the game on the spot. I think that shows Aaron respecting something. Don't know quite what it is, but we do see that the Sacred Foundry coming in untapped.
I was going to say, it's this right here.
Prismatic ending. Yeah, exactly.
Because there was an up on the Teferi last turn, so a sorcery can be played at instant speed here. So nice tight play from Aaron here. I might have been incentivized to go for it. When I see lethal, I generally get a little blinded and want to actually just go for it.
Oh, give it to me.
Yeah. The game might end. Let's go. You know.
Absolutely. So some tight play from Aaron. Yeah, definitely wanted to make sure to call that out. And instead of, you know, getting blown out by that prismatic ending, it was good, but Cat still at a pretty precarious 8, 2-turn clock with the Scion of Draco. And if Scion of Draco even gets one more hit, Tribal Flames looking to be lethal. As here comes Omnath, Locust.
It's a huge card for Cat here. They're going to be able to gain a little bit of life. Even Fury added to the hand here.
Fury does a good job taking care of that Scion.
Yeah, if there's a pitchable card, they can do that. There's Wrenn and Six too, if you want to just try to rumble in combat. This is a flying 4/4, so you probably want to go ahead and take care of this if you can.
Yeah, I would think that that would be the steer as well.
12, very important life total here. You know, Scion of Draco is attacking for 4 at a time, but this puts you out of range of 1 attack plus Tribal Flames from killing you, so it needs to be that plus something else this turn.
Right. Is here a big draw step potentially for Aaron. Sacred Foundry appeared to be added to the mix. Going to go ahead and shock that one in. Let's see what Aaron has done a good job answering everything Cat's thrown at him so far. Looks like Shardless Agent among the mix. Going to go ahead and cast that one. Need to tap the only blue source to do so. No more blue cards this turn.
This is the hardest part about one of the hardest parts about playing with this deck is tapping your mana correctly for all of your possible plays after this.
Yeah, making sure you can cast them. And you see Aaron pausing to make sure they did the math for that. And Tribal Flames, the hit off of Shardless Agent. That's going to go after the Omnath, Locust of Creation. And suddenly, you know, maybe Aaron's once again back in the driver's seat as Omnath hits the graveyard.
5 damage in the Omnath's going to resolve there. It's going to go to the graveyard, like you said. And we've got a 4/4 that could possibly attack Cat here. It looks like we're going to add one of the lands back to Aaron's hand. Looks like And Arid
Arid
Mesa going to
Mesa.
add it back in there. Now, land has been played this turn, and that Shardless Agent cannot attack, right?
Yeah, it looks like, Cat making sure Shardless Agent does
Yep.
not have haste. Yeah, there we go. We run that one back. Here comes
No.
4 damage, going to deal 4 to Cat. Back down to 8. Of course, Omnath did quite a good job stymieing the aggression. Looks like Eladamri's Call among other cards for Cat this turn. So big turn for Aaron, potentially big turn for Cat. A lot of back and forth here in this matchup. This has been really cool to watch.
Yeah, this Shardless Agent does actually have 2 other abilities right now. It does have Trample and Hexproof added from the Scion, but haste not one of them. So, like you said, back over to Cat. Very important here. Very important turn to see if they can restabilize here. They've done a very good job of it almost every turn of these games, but Aaron's been up to the task of just getting those last points of damage through.
Absolutely. And of course, if you were to just take a snapshot of this board state in this particular moment, it looks like Aaron's very far ahead. We're ahead on life. We're ahead on board. We even have a Planeswalker running, 3 cards in hand still. There's a lot of resources Aaron appears to be up on, but you can never underestimate the power of these elemental decks. They can get a few pieces of card advantage going, things like Risen Reef, and then a few pitch elementals, and suddenly the entire tide is turned the other direction. So, you can see Cat very deliberately lining up some mana here. Big turn to plan out when it involves things like Eladamri's Call and a series of triggers and tutors and what have you. I think we might have a really big turn out of Cat. I'm very excited to see what we have going on here.
Let's say, is there a land left over for Cat here too? Because you do have possibility of call into Omnath, draw a card. If you don't have a land already, maybe you hit one. If you hit a fetch, that could be a huge turn. So Cat with a lot of options possibly. I believe there is an Eldamari's Call left in their hand.
I agree. It looks like maybe a copy of Boseiju as well. Can't get a great look. Fury among the bunch. Going to go ahead and hardcast that one. 5 mana paid there. That resolves. Let's take out that Scion, please and thank you. Shardless Agent no longer has Hexproof and Trampled. Boseiju played as the land for turn.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be able to leave up call for the end of turn here. And I think I saw the last card in the hand might be Engineered Explosives. I'm not 100% on that.
I saw as well. Pretty good one.
Maybe be able to clean up this board if another big turn happens from Aaron, or something like General comes in and makes multiple tokens. This is a selective sweeper that you can have in the matchup.
Exactly. And I think we might be seeing a fetch here for the Territorial Kavu. And if so, Engineered Explosives on 2 would be devastating. Taking care of the Wrenn and Six and the Kavu as a nice clean 2-for-1 that I don't even think Aaron necessarily has on his radar.
We'll have to see. I see another, I think, Bloodbraid Elf in Aaron's hand here as well. Maybe think about how aggressive they want to be. Most of their hits are either good creatures or removal spells here.
Oh, I like that. One.
Yeah.
Here comes Bloodbraid Elf.
By the way, I like this timing too. Go ahead and use the Wrenn and Six before casting your Bloodbraid Elf, because what if you hit another Wrenn and Six here?
True. Also, if you hit a Tribal Flames, that's just lethal. And here's a Lightning Bolt that's going to go after the Fury, because Tribal Flames go face, go to 5, then Shardless Agent plus Bloodbraid Elf. That's onboard lethal. Instead, a good consolation prize. Lightning Bolt going to take care of the blocker. 5 damage still in play. 3 different CMCs across all of Aaron's permanents means that Engineered Explosives is not really going to be terribly good at handling what's on the board right now. Now, we do know Cat has access to an Eladamri's Call, could grab something like a Solitude, and Engineered Explosives on 2 now takes care of 2 different permanents. So we'll see what they can assemble, but now at a pretty precarious life total, don't have a lot more hits they can take.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to figure out what to get here. I do see them looking at a Fury, but I wonder if Fury gets it done enough here with the Wrenn and Six. I do believe Cat is at 2 here this turn. I don't know if the life totals have been upgraded or updated, but I wonder if you're supposed to get Omnath here, draw a card, depends on what the last card in the hand is, and possibly do also. I think it's an Engineered Explosives. We're not 100% on that, but we'll let Cat make this call. If you had a fetch land in your hand, maybe Titania could possibly get there. I don't even think that's enough. Well, it looks like we went past Omnath.
Went past Solitude too. Looks like Cat may be considering what all the options are even left in the deck.
With Omnath, you at least get 2 fresh cards, right? You get your card for the turn plus the card off Omnath.
That's true. And if any of those are lands, you get a nice cushion of 4 life to work with, as well as a blocker.
Solitude would remove a blocker, then also possibly be able to block with lifelink and survive, but that dies all the same things you're going to die to anyway. Yeah, I don't mind taking a little bit of extra time here just to kind of make sure this is your best chance Maybe the raw card count with Omnath is going to be important. The fact that it gets you even another card deeper into your deck. You can maybe find another removal spell. A Risen Reef along with the land would be huge.
Absolutely. Cat access to a lot of mana too. So maybe something like a Yorion could add to the mix. If Cat picks up something like a fetch land, getting that boost of mana could represent potentially a Yorion plus Omnath turn to recoup both cards and life. Not necessarily sure. I trust Cat to know their deck well enough to figure it out, but not a decision that I envy having to make because it seems like a tough one.
Yeah, and you can see Cat taking a lot of time here to make their decision, and I don't blame them. This is the hardest choice of the game, and this will decide the game.
This is definitely a deciding decision. I agree. See what they will select. Looks like Solitude gonna be the final selection. Reasonable, like you said, die to all the same things anyway, so no sense worrying about removal. You're gonna die to that anyway. Take care of the Kavu, gonna be able to line up a block on Bloodbraid.
When you can't play around something, you just have to act like it doesn't exist. You're like, whatever. I'm dead to this anyway. What's the best play that I can make if you have nothing? If you don't have any of those things.
Right. What does me winning this game look like? What do your cards have to be to where I can win? Fetchland was the draw off the top. Flooded Strand, not necessarily the best one in this situation. Solitude, not Omnath, grabbed off Eldamri's Call, but we do still have Solitude available to our turn. Don't have the mana to buy Yorion, though.
Yeah, and it does... I was going to say, with the fetch, do we have enough to be able to injure explosives for 2, crack it, and play?
Looks like injure explosives for 2, crack it, buy Yorion, and pitch Yorion is going to be the play.
I think that's what's going to happen, right? Is that enough to stop everything that kills Wrenn and Six in this?
Well, maybe not.
Okay, this says go.
So it looks like we're turn back. Hard cast Solitude.
Yeah, it's going to be hard cast Solitude here.
Yeah. Tick down, you.
Yeah, you.
I love it so much. Yeah. The slowest lightning bolt in the universe does represent lethal in this particular moment. Cat could have preemptively cracked the engineering explosives, but once again, we know about the Solitude that they're going to be looking to ambush and combat. Aaron also knows about it. And looks like maybe the beginning of combat, we're looking to go ahead and pick off this Territorial Kavu. That's 5 life coming for Aaron. Do we attack?
Yeah, do you want to get the Solitude off the board? I think you possibly... I mean, I was going to say, it's pretty hard. I would be worried about something like Ephemerate off the top of the deck.
Or the Yorion in the companion zone, right? I think that's a card that has to be on Aaron's radar as well. Giving Cat another Swords to Plowshares, not super appealing, is Here Comes Icefang Quaddle. That provides another blocker to lock up the ground. Cat does need to crack this Engineered Explosives to answer that Wrenn, though, or they will die to it.
Listen, we could maybe use the Engineered Explosives before casting the Quaddle here, but maybe not. So it looks like we're going to add the Yorion to hand.
Yorion added to hand. Can't cast that one. Do have the mana to crack Engineered Explosives.
Yeah, you have to do it before you give Aaron priority here on his.
Yeah, can't let Aaron have priority with Wrenn on a main phase. All right, as here goes Wrenn and Six, as well as Cat's Icefang Quaddle, and a passing of the turn. Shardless Agent plus Bloodbraid Elf versus Solitude. Not lethal on table, but Bloodbraid Elf is going to add to the mix, and Cat doesn't even need to see Cascade. They have seen enough. That is going to be lethal, and Aaron going to win this match 2-0 over Cat on 4-color elementals. An impressive showing from the Zoo deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron moving up to 6-0 with the Zoo deck. We just cracked 1,000 people as well seeing this cool, innovative deck in the chat, like you were talking about. And I gotta say, the deck was pretty impressive that game. There was a lot of the spots where I really felt like the 4-color deck was going to be able to take over the board, right? With Titania in play, with Omnath in play, drawing extra cards, gaining extra life, getting extra mana. But the Tribal Flames deck just did not give up and just kept bringing more and more assault every single turn. And, General Ferrous is a very, very good card at going super wide. It's hard to answer out of the 4-color deck. We saw Scion of Draco and Territorial Kavu just do a ton of work in those games, dealing tons of damage, being huge threats that had to be answered every time. And then anytime that they weren't answered, we saw them run away with the game. So really cool deck here. Unlicensed Hearst making a little bit of appearance and a little bit of impact as well. I like this deck a lot. That looked really cool.